Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have some more Mattel Jurassic World figures to take a look at, and we actually have some more from the Wild Pop-Ups assortment. This is a newer line of figures that only kind of debuted, I think, with Dominion. Now they're basically the replacement for the Snap Squads, and I think the Snap Squads were much more superior to the pop-ups. I kind of hope we go back to those at some point. I don't think that'll happen, but it would be nice. But it is still kind of cool to have something a little bit different, because we kind of did run through like almost every species at one point or another, or at least the large majority of them anyway. Not quite every species, but a large majority of species in the Snap Squads. So I guess it was kind of time for a change. We had to lead to something else, which is now the pop-ups, and they look interesting. They're not my favorite thing in the world, but they're okay. This time, though, I do want to give a huge shout out to Plush Boy Q for snagging these for me, because these were found at his local Meijer store, I believe, which I don't have any of those stores even in my state at all. So the chances of actually finding these were pretty slim anytime soon, at least, because in fact I haven't seen Snap Squads or pop-ups or anything of the sort in my area probably since around the time Dominion came out. It's definitely been a while now. So definitely excited to actually have the chance to look at these, because again, they're getting harder to find in my area. So thank you to Plush Boy Q for hooking me up with these as well. But you can see this time around we have a Giganotosaurus. We've also got ourselves a Triceratops, a Parasaurolophus, and an Indoraptor. And it's interesting to have the Triceratops, because this is the first time I think we actually had a quadrupedal dinosaur in the pop-ups line, or at least so far that I've taken a look at anyway, that I can recall. This is the first time we've had a quadrupedal dinosaur, and it doesn't look very good as far as that Triceratops goes. It's not as easy to make these look all right like you could with the Snap Squads when it comes to the pop-ups, because you kind of need them to have shorter front limbs for the pop-up thing to work, and that makes the Triceratops look super awkward, because you know, Triceratops isn't going to have shorter limbs like this. So you can see he looks really, really weird. It looks like a Triceratops that turned into a bipedal version, but very interesting nonetheless. So we're going to go ahead, pop each and every one of these out of the packages and jump straight to a closer look at them right now. So starting with the Giganotosaurus straight away, I don't know exactly how different this one is from the previously released Giganotosaurus. It looks pretty much the same to me, except for one thing straight away you'll notice is the eye is absolutely insane. And I don't know exactly what's wrong with this one, but it makes me love him so much because he's so ridiculous looking. This eye is nuts. And I just did this before. I tried to close the eye because I saw how goofy it was. And you close it, and that's when the eye kind of becomes normal. But what happens is they usually close their eyes when you push them down, so it's like they're sleeping or something like that, and then they pop up and their eyes pop open, but his eyes just go totally insane when you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that this guy's got a little bit of a problem as far as his eye goes, and that's not meant to actually occur that way. You can see this eye looks pretty normal. I don't know if this one goes closed when Nope, his eye opens more. So, I don't know. Now I can't get him to come back up. I don't know exactly what's wrong with this guy, but he's got some issues with his eyes, that's for sure. But as far as our kind of wacky version of the Giganotosaurus goes, he looks pretty much the same as the previously released version as far as the sculpt goes. The paint looks, as far as I can remember, the same. I can't exactly locate mine currently because my Jurassic shelf is a bit of a mess, and it definitely needs to be cleaned up a little bit because we just got so many figures after Dominion that I've just been piling them in there and not actually putting them in correctly, so I can't exactly find this guy in there right now, but he looks the same to me as the previously released version did, and if he's not, he probably would have some very slight differences, not much at all. So I don't feel like we really need to go over this guy very much, so we'll just go ahead and put Mr. Crazy Eye back down here. So after taking a quick look back at my previous review of the Giganotosaurus, it's definitely the same figure. But this one is definitely one that we haven't had prior, and that is the Triceratops. And you can see the Triceratops does have some pretty nice looking detail to it, like really quite impressive sculpt and detail here in the head. And there's also some nice coloration. I actually like how they've painted this out where we have like this yellowish tone for the body, kind of like a yellowish brown, and then we have this really nice kind of interesting lighter tone, like almost like an orangish sort of runs up around the top of the frill, and it looks really cool. You can also see the horns are sculpted quite nicely, as there is some cracks and crevices, like some fine detail to them, and also painted very nicely with an off-white. We've got a yellow eye with a black pupil, and you can see again the scale detail and everything looks really, really nice on this. There is also some speckling and stuff you'll see through the course of the figure, which is a nice touch. We have a yellow that's in coloration there for the beak, but it does have a glossy look to it, which is nice, and you can see again as the light hits it that nice kind of crack and crevice sort of a look there as far as the fine detail goes. We have an alternate tone of color for the lower jaw, kind of like a light tan, and you can see the inside of the mouth has a very nice realistic tone of color, also a beautifully textured tongue, and you can see the teeth are sculpted out and painted there on the inside of the mouth as well, and they're all painted pretty nicely. Each tooth sculpted individually on the lower jaw. The upper jaw, they're all kind of blended together, but they don't look bad by any means. As you move through the course of the Triceratops, you can see some more nice looking detailing here to the back. You've got some osteoderms and stuff as you move through, which look really nice. And again, no real color variation aside from the yellowish brown tone of the body, and then we also have the speckles and stuff throughout, but decent as far as that goes. And again, the detail looks really vibrant through the course of the figure. You can see even leading down the rear legs, it looks really nice as you lead down into the foot sculpt. No actual nail paint, but you don't really see that usually on these figures. But when you look at the front legs, they kind of made the front legs look so tiny so that it can have the pop-up feature that it now looks like it's almost a bipedal version. And it's kind of inevitable. They kind of had to do this for this action feature to work and for them to kind of dive into quadrupedal dinosaurs, but I think it makes them look really goofy. But in general, I mean, look at the dinosaur. It's obviously a goofy looking figure from the start, so they can get away with it without it taking away very much from the figure. And you can see again we have that lighter tone we see on the lower jaw run here along the underside, stretching out into the tail as well. So, he's okay for what he is. Kind of cool to have some quadrupedal herbivores in the line, but they do look a bit more ridiculous than they used to with the Snap Squads. Then we've got the Parasaurolophus here, which looks not quite as ridiculous as the Triceratops, but not too far off. But you can see again, as far as the Parasaurolophus goes, we've got a nice brownish tone there for the beak that leads up into the crest, and then it does transition to kind of like a reddish tone up there for the tip of the crest. We also have a tannish type of color there for the primary body. There is a speckling to it as well, and then there's a yellow eye with a black pupil, and you can see that we also have a light tone here, kind of like a light gray for the lower jaw. And that tone, of course, does run through the entire underside, and that's pretty much how they all work as far as the coloration goes. And the speckling is really nice on this one. You can see it's everywhere as you move through the body, so that does look really cool. The inside of the mouth, again, sports pretty much the same tone of color we saw for the Triceratops. The teeth are painted out on the inside of the mouth of this one as well, and again, it all looks pretty decent for the most part. It has a nice gloss coat, just like the Triceratops did. So, sculpt-wise and paint-wise, our Parasaurolophus is pretty fun. Pretty much exactly as I would expect when it comes to a pop-ups version. You've got some nice scoots down the toes there. And again, just like with the Triceratops, the actual fine detail is really, really vibrant on the figure. You cannot dare deny how good the actual detailing of Mattel figures looks like. They always have really high quality, really good, very nice fine detail, and you can absolutely see that even here on these pop-ups as you check out each and every one of them. They do look great as far as the fine detail goes, and it is pretty cool to have a Parasaurolophus now in the line. I like the nice little curve there to the tail, but definitely cool to have a pop-ups Parasaurolophus. And then the one that I'm probably most excited about, we've got the Indoraptor, and he looks very interesting. The head sculpt doesn't look too Indoraptor-ish, but it's got some nice detail again, just like we saw in the others. We've got some nice scale detail. We have a black tone for the body, and that, of course, is because that's exactly how it looks in the film. You don't really see a whole lot of color variation for the Indoraptor, so I wouldn't expect to see that on the pop-ups version. We do have an orangish eye here with a nice black slit-like pupil, and of course the eye has a nice shiny appearance to it. The teeth are sculpted very nicely. Again, as far as like a pop-ups version, they usually would look like this. We don't have kind of interlocking teeth or anything like you would see on the actual Indoraptor because of how goofy these figures are. Although we did actually see, in fact, we can show you, we have interlocking teeth for the Giganotosaurus. So now that I'm looking at it, I don't see why they couldn't have done that with the Indoraptor, and it would have looked a little bit better, honestly, I think, than what we have here with this specific Indoraptor version. I think the fact that they didn't give it the interlocking teeth now is a little bit of a bummer, a little bit of a downside, but we again have a similar tone of color to the inside of the mouth as what we had just seen on the others. Nice gloss coat yet again. The teeth are all painted very nicely, no real sloppiness, especially when you look there at the teeth on the lower jaw, because again, every tooth painted and sculpted individually, so they did do a good job as far as that goes. And as you move back through the course of the body, you see that kind of gold stripe pick up, and that leads back toward the tail there. You also have some quills and stuff up here on the top, like you see on the Indoraptor, that somewhat armored sort of scoot-like appearance moving down the spinal column of the dinosaur all the way out onto the tail, which also looks pretty nice. We have a similar curve to the tail as we had seen on the Parasaurolophus as it curves toward the dinosaur's left. You also have, again, your sickle claw and everything like you would expect to see. Nice scoots down the toes. And again, the detailing does look really nice on the figure everywhere. And you also have the arms held into the body. It's not like the old Snap Squads where the arms would kind of dangle and hang. They're all just kind of one solid piece of the body. There's no articulation or anything for those areas. So I definitely like the Snap Squad version of the Indoraptor better, but this one's kind of fun. Now, I don't feel like we need to do sizes, measurements, comparisons, any of that stuff, because these are, of course, the same size as the previously released versions, and we've had, I think this is like the 4th or 5th wave of these now at this point, so we're obviously all very aware of how they size up, but if you are unfamiliar with their action feature, basically what you do is you push them down so that they are supposed to fall asleep, even though the Indoraptor's eyes are even kind of slightly open, and then you want to basically press them down, and nope, it didn't work. I always forget how to do this. Oh, there we go. So it wakes up. So you can see it just kind of pops up, you know, the name pop up, and now it's awake. And they all, of course, do the same thing. That's the action feature of all of them. He didn't go to sleep either. His eyes just looking down. And then, oh, and he's not working at all. I don't know what's wrong with this one. Maybe I'm just really bad at operating these. Wow, he's not coming out of it at all. I don't know what. He's like stuck in there now. So there we go. So he kind of popped up, but I wasn't really prepared for it. So as you can see, I'm definitely no professional when it comes to the action feature of these figures, and they also don't work consistently all that great. I've had some that are quite defective in the past, but it is what it is. We'll just put it that way. It's an interesting concept, an interesting idea. Mattel did their best to kind of create them in a way that is kind of fun, kind of interesting, but at the same time, kind of weird and not as nice as the Snap Squads, I'll put it that way. So this brand new wave of wild pop-ups from Mattel are okay. They're not really that great. Again, the figures themselves look cool. The sculpts look nice. They're all very highly detailed. The fact that we have a Parasaurolophus now in the line is pretty fun because I love Parasaurolophus, and I think they did a good job as far as choosing the colors and everything on it. And since it is a herbivore, it's nice to have one in the line because we haven't had very many herbivores in the past when it comes to the pop-ups line so far, so it is nice to have a Parasaurolophus in the line, and again, it looks decent for what it is. The Giganotosaurus is the same figure as the original version that we had. Nothing new that I can tell with on this one aside from that absolutely insane wonky eye that it's got going on, but it is still a pretty cool figure and definitely fun to have a Giga in the line again, even if it doesn't really have anything new to it. I would have liked to have seen a repaint at least, but it's okay for what it is. The Triceratops is the goofiest one that I've seen so far when it comes to these wild pop-ups, just because the front legs look so ridiculous and now makes it look more like a bipedal version of a Triceratops, so he looks super ridiculous, but the detail does look really nice. Nothing really, flashy going on, nothing impressive going on with the paint job, but it looks okay as well. Again, natural-ish, yes, sure, just nothing really that's memorable. The Indoraptor is also okay. It's not as nice as a previously released version from the Snap Squads, but it looks okay. The head sculpt just looks a little weird, and we probably should have went with the interlocking teeth. It's actually really cool in general to have an Indoraptor coming back, and now we have this version. We have the recently released version. I forget what the name of it was, but we did have an Indoraptor released recently, and there is a super colossal version coming at some point soon as well, so that's really exciting. So it is cool to see the Indoraptor getting some more love from Mattel. So as a whole, even though they're nothing to really go crazy over, they're still pretty fun, and definitely something worth seeking out if you like this line of figures. Again, these were found by Plush Boy Q at his local Meijer store, so if you happen to have one of those near you, that's probably the best place to start with when it comes to looking for them. Or I believe you can actually order them on Toyopolis in the United Kingdom, so the shipping will be a bit much, but that is one way you can go when it comes to ordering them. So I will include a link in the description to where you can check them out on there. And again, place an order for them on Toyopolis if you would like to grab them from there and you don't really feel like searching for them. One way or another, it's all right. Again, they're kind of cool for what they are. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.